Message 287 treble. Move on now, if I may, to something I read this morning, which is about pensions. As we know, the government is desperate to try and fill a fiscal hole. I'm tempted to say a fiscal hole of its own making. 50 billion it needs to find. It's believed that they want to raise taxes, half of the money coming from tax raises and also half the money coming from cuts in public services. It seems that the latest people they are going to attack are pensioners. Well, joining me now is Dr. Roger Gewolb, who is personal finance expert and CEO of Fair Money. Good morning to you, Roger.
Good morning, David.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in at such short notice as well. But just in terms of, the government's playing its usual game, isn't it? It's trying to find money. The idea being it's going to use stealth taxes. I feel very sorry for pensioners. And essentially, they're going to freeze the pension lifetime allowance for another 2 years, already delayed until 2025. It's going to go up till 2027.
Yes, it's outrageous. And as usual, we're being flanneled, we're being scammed, we're being given the mushroom treatment. You know what that is? It's being kept in the dark and fed on you know what. And as was just said, it's true. There is just so much going on that it's very difficult for people to discern things anymore and to properly unpick all these stories to get to the truth. So a lot of folks just really do turn off and tune out. And that, I'm afraid, is when the damage really gets done, because that's when all of these people who we've chosen to be our leaders, again, as with your last caller, how in the world do we choose these folks? That's when they really slip in the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And of this, I'm in no doubt. That's why I'm wearing these badges. They're not being fair and honest with us, or they just don't get it. But either way, it's making me froth so much that the Met has ordered me off public transport lest I explode and cover other passengers.
Well, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And, just in terms of, it just seems so wrong. People who are law-abiding and they decide I'm going to put money aside for a pension because this is the right thing to do so that I'm not a burden to the state, they're the ones that get absolutely pummeled every single time.
And it's very, first of all, when you talk to people about pensions, it's the greatest way to put anybody to sleep. So when they actually explain what they're doing, it's so arcane and filled with buzzwords which are fairly meaningless that people really just tune out. Perhaps I could try to clarify what's actually happened here a bit. Basically, we all can have a pension pot up to £1 million. It used to be £1.5 million. But the Tories have been chipping away at pensions as a stealth tax. And a stealth tax, of course, is a tax where they don't actually raise the tax rate. They just extend the net, bringing more people into it and extending the liability further. And that's how they get more money without actually raising taxes. So they've been doing this since they got in. They've been doing this for over 10 years. And originally you could keep $1.5 million in your pension pot. That's now been reduced to just a little over $1 million. And the amount that you can keep without being taxed at a rate of 55%, by the way, on what you withdraw, has been extended every year along with price rises. But now, as you say, they've frozen it. So that with the huge inflation we have, that's going to wipe out a huge amount of people's savings. They're hitting savers, and they're hitting effectively the elderly.
I know, it's extraordinary. I'm just reading here. You're right, it was at 1.5 million. It went up actually in 2010 to 1.8 million, and then consecutively went down to 1 million. And of course, this means that something like 2 million savers will face those 55% tax rises, or tax the amount they pay tax at 55%
when they withdraw.
They withdraw. But that to me just seems all wrong. The whole point is, and someone's made the point that it is also about working people who are saving up to be pensioners. This sends out all the wrong messages, doesn't it?
Totally. But wait a minute, it's even worse than that, David, because even if you don't withdraw, as soon as you hit 75 years old, you pay 25% on the excess.
But why?
Because that's been the law for a long time. So in other words, the actual amount that you may have is £1,073,000. Now, if you have more than that and you withdraw that excess, you pay 55, and even though that's worth less and less, they're not going to raise that 1,073,000 for the next 2 years, as you say. But if you never withdraw the money and you turn 75, you've then got to pay 25% on the excess as well.
Yeah. So your advice to people who are waking up and hearing this news, what's the advice?
The advice is think carefully before putting more money into your pension, because you're going to be paying 55% tax when you take it out. See if you can't find some other ways to do something with your savings, perhaps buying property.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, so Ben Habib was here earlier. He said that actually he made a conscious decision not to invest in a pension because he didn't trust anyone, certainly didn't trust the government, and put it into other investments that he could actually control.
That's a possibility. But then, of course, the whole thing is that this is to plug this so-called black hole. And the black hole, a lot of people are saying, doesn't actually exist. The black hole results from two things. It results from Rishi's stated intention over and over of paying back the COVID debt as quickly as possible. Now, why does he need to do that? We took 61 years to pay back the World War II debt. And is he trying to get the youth vote? I mean, he doesn't want the younger generation to suffer that. Well, I mean, I don't think they care. And by the time he does pay that debt back in a couple of years, if he manages to do that, the government will have borrowed for something else. So it's completely insane. I just don't think a gentleman so rich that he probably pays his kids pocket money in Bitcoin can understand what this does to people.
Well, I agree, Roger. I just think there is such a disconnect between those in power, those making these rules, and actually the real people who are struggling, who are doing what they think is the right thing to do. There is just a massive disconnect for me.
There is totally. And the other part of the, pardon me, non-existent black hole is that we are grossly overpaying for our electricity. Now, as of yesterday, the National Grid reported, David, that 80% of our electricity yesterday came from non-gas sources. And yet 100% of our electricity bills are pegged to the international gas price.
Indeed they are.
Which is being manipulated by Putin. People like John Penrose, the MP who invented the price cap, have been saying, as has Boris, as has many others, uncouple this, get rid of it. If they just decoupled it, a huge part of that 50 billion would disappear. The other part of the 50 billion is to pay back COVID. So for me, at least, respectfully, Mr. Prime Minister, the whole thing is an absolute nonsense, and you're going to tax us?
Yeah.
You're going to cut our police, our NHS, our education, our defense. You're going to increase capital gains tax. You're even going to put VAT on electric vehicles, for goodness sake, all to fill a hole which many people would like you all to disappear into, frankly.
Very well said. I mean, I have to say the thing about the electric cars I thought actually made no sense at all. I thought the whole point was to push people to electric cars. So why on earth would you tax people?
Because this is a push me, pull you government. It's just incredible. The left hand, the right hand, it just goes on and on. As you both just said, it just gets worse and worse every day. Where are the normal people? Where are the grown-ups? Who can just, we need a minister for common sense.
We mustn't forget, of course, that these pensions that people are seeing nibbled away are going to have to pay for the cost of living at the same time.
Oh, I know.
So bigger electricity bills, bigger gas bills. You've got pensioners sitting in homes they can't heat, wearing extra jumpers, and their pension is just being derided by a government that apparently has their voting base amongst these people.
I know, you make a very good point.
It's as David just said, it's just a major, humongous, gigantic disconnect. There are zillions of people out there saying the things that we're saying. This is going to destroy the interest rate rises, which is a whole other subject, which is crazy and unnecessary. It's going to destroy the property market, mortgages. Generation rent won't be able to rent. It's going to destroy the equity release market for older people. And it's all unnecessary. And I fear that if they persist with all of this, the biggest house value we're going to see is the drop in value in the House of Commons.
Roger, you always make great points. Thank you very much indeed. Very good to see you. That's Dr. Roger Gavob, who is a personal finance expert and CEO of Fair Money. Now